Hello, it's Lou Bisignani again. I found another story. I dug deep in the depths of my youth, back when I had my powers, which are now gone and spent unwisely. This is a story that I can't tell the whole story in one night. So I'm going to cut it into a couple of chunks because it's another one of my sagas. And the first part of the saga is called "The Making of the Crucible." In 1982, Lou Bisignani called up Mary O'Brien, who had acted with him up in the Abingtons and was a pretty good little actress and so forth. And I said, "How would you like to help me do a real big cast show?" And she said, "What is it?" I said, "The Crucible." And she said, "Okay, you're on." And so I called a fellow named Dean John Gavigan at the University of Scranton. He was a friend, one of our gangs that drank too much together and so forth. And he explained that he appreciated the idea of doing that show and so forth, and I could use a room in one of the buildings, I forget which building, to have my audition, and then he would see to it that I was able to rehearse in and perform in the basement. That sounds kind of crude, doesn't it? It was only a few feet below ground. In the basement of Jefferson Hall, which is no longer there, but that's not my fault. And so I said, "Okay, great." And Mary and I put a little thing in the paper this big. Lou Bisignani and Mary O'Brien are having open casting for The Crucible to be performed in, I forget when the heck it was now, late August or a little bit later than that. And 23 or 24 people showed up at this room in the University of Scranton. I didn't know many of them, but there was a nice looking group of people. They all seemed to have some verve and vimmer and so forth. And I cast every one of them, except one or two of them were going to be like backstage people as well and so forth, even running the lights. I had everything I needed. And after looking over the entire crew and what I had and so forth, I decided that Mary O'Brien, my co-conspirator, should be in the play, and she was a good actress. And I said, "You can play. I'd like you to play the wife of the guy, the lead. You know, the guy, Mrs. Proctor, I think." Anyhow, we started rehearsal. We rehearsed for about 2 months. It's a 3-act play with it's not always done, but there's a short piece where the girls dance in the woods and are caught at it, and that's what starts the whole rigmarole. And then in the middle of the play, between acts 2 and 3, or 3 and 4, I forget which it is, there's 4 acts, the lead, the Proctor, meets the woman that he had an illicit affair with, which in those days was a big thing. That was like a really bad thing to do. Get yourself in a lot of trouble, and he did. And they meet in the forest, and it's a nice scene. But many people don't do that scene, but you're looking at Lou Bisignani, totally insane. Okay, so we're going to do the whole schmear. We're going to do the beginning scene in the woods. We're going to do the scene in the forest. And we rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. Toward the end, it was such a long play. Toward the end of rehearsals, we're rehearsing in the basement of Jefferson Hall, as I said. And it was 11 o'clock at night. You know, and we've got the whole next act to do, another 30 minutes. And in comes the guard, the security guard, and he says it's 11 o'clock. And I looked at him, and I you know how, see, look at this face. Could anybody not love this face? So I looked at him and I said, "Just give me a couple more minutes. We only have one more act to do." And he didn't say yes, and he didn't say no. What he did was he just looked at me for like this, you know, no, very stoically, turned around and left the room. And I said, "Okay, kids, let's just run through this. We don't want to be too long. We want to get out of here pretty soon." So we started acting the final act of the play, and he came back with another guard, and he had a gun. And I said, "That's it for tonight, kids. Let's get out of here." That's the kind of play it was. It was always exciting. So 2 nights later, it's dress rehearsal night. Now, I sewed many of the costumes. And because I'm crazy, instead of having the men, wear pants, like I wear pants and Bob probably wears pants too, I made pants that you pull them on, they come to a little below your knee, There's no zipper. There's no pockets. They didn't need pockets. And in the back of the pants, there were little holes that you string a string through, and you tighten it after you put it on because it's bigger than it has to be. So that's how pants were back in those days. They didn't even know about zippers in 1502 or whatever the heck it was. And one of my favorite actors in the whole show, and I had a lot of good actors and actresses in that show, was a guy named Randy Stone. He used to work for Channel 22, I believe. He was very low down in the structure of the TV station. He was the guy that was standing out on the outside with a microphone saying, there was an accident here last week, and a little kid was almost hurt, and we want the city to put a stop sign. That's the kind of news he did all the time on Channel 22. But he turned out to be a wonderful actor. And he was cast as the minister who comes from out of town to help with the trials and all this kind of stuff. You know what the Crucible is about. It's the Salem witch trials, and written by boy, am I stupid? Married Marilyn Monroe. I remember that. Arthur Miller. Anyhow, so Randy was a great actor, but he was very, I don't know how to put it, loosey-goosey, not aware of details, And so opening 2 nights before opening, everybody got their pants, and the guys and I had given them some strings, and he came up to me while I was in the middle of trying to get the set finished. Not me. I had a great set builder, Rory, I'll think of his name later. And, everybody's getting their costumes. They're trying them on. They got problems. He comes up to me and says, Lou, how do you put these pants on? And I said, pull them on. Just pull them on. What's the front, what's the back? And I showed him the little holes. I said, do you have that little string that I gave you? 45 minutes ago. He says, oh, I think I lost it. And he's holding his pants. And I'm like, I don't have time for this, Randy. I don't have time. There's too many things to do. So I literally, in the heat of the battle, took my shoe off, took my shoestring and my shoe lace out of my own shoe, and wove it through the holes in the back of his pants and pulled it nice and tight. And I said, okay, you're all set. Now go and get your coat on, get your shirt on, and I'll check you. Okay. Now this is getting ready for dress rehearsal. This is not dress rehearsal. This is like an hour before dress rehearsal is going to start, and everybody's getting set. The gal who was going to be in the play with a relatively small part. She would be a woman who had lost 7 children in childbirth, and she was one of the people that would say, "Nah, that's why the reason that I lost all my children in childbirth is because there's witches, and how come that woman over there never lost a child? She must be, maybe she's a witch." It was like that kind of stuff going on. So she comes up to me, and she was a good kid and a good actress, but those 23 people in the cast. And but she was also my backstage person. And she said, Lou, I have bad news. And I said, what's the bad news? She said, I figured somebody lost their pants. And she said, I thought I could do the 2 weekends. I can only do this weekend. I can't do next weekend. I have to leave after, in the middle of the week. I have to go someplace. I can't stay. I said, oh, well, okay. I understand. So we'll work. I'll find somebody to do your part. So she go back to work. Randy appears now in front of me, Randy Stone. He's all dressed up. He has on the white shirt, no collar in those days, but he has like a little tie thing that comes down, and a black coat, and the pants are on him, and the springers in the back. He's got his white stockings on, and I adjusted everything. I moved the collar and put a little pin so that it wouldn't move on him, and that it would be just right, and the tie hung in the middle, and made sure his stockings were up nice. And shoes, he had little buckles on his shoes. I even put buckles on there on loafers. Can you imagine? And anyhow, he looked great. I said, okay, Randy, go ahead. Get out of the way. We're going to start now. So everybody's dressed. Debbie's working backstage, but she's going to do her little part too in the first act, I think it is. And finally, after the first act is over, and we'll go right into the second act. We don't have time to have a cup of coffee. Randy appears for the first time, and I think in the second act, Randy Stone, the minister from out of town. People have already been arrested now by this time. And he walks onto the stage, and his collar has moved to the side. His tie is askew. The one stocking is down around his ankle. but these are with knee socks up in their knees, And I forget what else. He had a couple of other things. Oh, he had unbuttoned his coat. They were long coats. They came almost to your knee. He had unbuttoned it to go to the men's room. And when he rebuttoned it, he buttoned it one button off. Instead of like this, it was like this. So that the last button was like 4 inches below the bottom on the one side, And I just went, oh, Randy, come here. No, come here. And I had to fix him. And there was a very pretty little gal in that show. I can't think of her name now. But I knew she had her eye on him. But he was a good looking guy, Randy Stone. And I called her over. She was the daughter of, she played, I didn't have another old woman to play the wife of this old man. I made her the daughter of the old man, but with the same dialogue that the wife would have given. And I called her over. I said, come here, you. And Randy's standing right there. And I don't have time for political correctness. I said, Randy, Irene or whatever her name was. And Irene, this is Randy. See how he's dressed now, how his tie is in the middle and the collar's here and the highest and the stockings are both up. He does not go on stage tomorrow night without checking in with you. I want you to keep your eye on him. Stay with him. Stay close by him as much as you can and make sure he comes out on stage dressed properly. And she was thrilled. Randy didn't mind. He didn't even get the drift of what I was saying, But anyhow, that's how I took care of that situation. So the next night, so I go home and I'm thinking I got to replace this gal, Debbie. And who can I get? And I called a few people and somebody said, who you should call? Call Carol Bucklaw. I didn't know Carol Bucklaw. Where does she live? Carbondale. I said, but she belongs to a theater group up in Carbondale. Very nice woman, very cooperative. Not a kid. She was she was older than me. A little older than me, not a hell of a lot older. So I got her number from somebody and I called her up and she was very pleasant and very, like, what can I do to help you? And I explained the situation. And I said, like this weekend, Debbie's going to do the role. And if you were to come down tomorrow night to the opening night and maybe even two performances, you could sit with me and watch her do the role and see the blocking. It's very simple, but this way you're not being thrown to the lions in the den without and not knowing what you're doing. I said, okay, what time should I get there? And she said, I should get there at 7 because the play starts at 8. It's the play now. The next night is the play. So everybody's there. Everybody's getting dressed. There's a lot of hullabaloo as always, and so forth. But everything seems to be falling into place nicely. And Carol arrived. Carol Bucklaw. She arrived at 7 o'clock. Probably got there 2 minutes before me. And I met her. I saw her for the first time. She was wonderful. She was just right for. She was going to be Peter Couples' wife, who has lost 7 children in childbirth. And I'm standing there talking to her and sort of giving her a little pep talk, sit with me. And Debbie comes running up to me, red-faced, out of breath, obviously in a lot of stress. And she said, Lou, I have terrible news. I have to leave now. I said, no. What do you mean you're going to leave now? I said, I thought I could stay this weekend. I can't. I have to leave right now. And as she was talking as she was running away from me and up the steps and out the door. And Carol Bucklaw and I were sort of with our mouths open, a little, huh? And she looked at me and I looked at her and I said, don't worry, get the costume. And somebody ran and got the costume and I said, Carol, put this on, it'll fit you, put it on. And I said, does anybody have a spare, the script? The book, the script book was like, not a big printed out one, just a regular book. I said, give me a script. So they gave me a script. And I said, do you have any black paper or black fabric? So I think it was a piece of black fabric. I covered the cover up with black. I said, this is your Bible. You are a religious woman. This is your little Bible. Here's your lines. Peter Couple, get over here. This is your husband. Never let her go, Peter. She never has no idea where you got to go in this thing. She never saw the play or heard of the play. So she hung on to Peter Couple on his arm, and she read her lines out of the script, but it was her Bible. And it was believable, and she did a nice job. And by the second night, she was off book. Like I said, it wasn't a real major problem. And that was that. That's how we solved that little problem. But the second night, or maybe it was the third night, I'm not even sure. Nancy, my wife, who I want to say it was more than tolerance of my theater activities. She wasn't that much into the theater. She had many, many, many other activities. The Architectural Heritage Association, the Broadway Theater League, the Women's Right to Vote, or whatever, not the right to vote, they had a right to vote for a long time, but it was a women's organization for voting, and she was in everything. But I asked her, you're going to come and see me. So she would come and see my play one night, So she and I sat way in the back, full crowd, big house. The play goes smoothly, and I'm leaning over to her. People who sat near me probably were ticked off because I'm like, there was a scene where late in the play where Mary O'Brien, the wife of the man who's going to be hung,